Hi there and welcome to another Views from the Valley, your weekly roundup of the news here in the United States, coming to you from v3.co.uk's offices in San Francisco. With me as ever, Shaun Nichols. Hi Shaun.
Hi Iain.
Enjoyed your President's Day weekend?
Yeah, always nice to get a few extra days, extra day off.
Indeed. We had President's Day on Monday, which was originally for Washington's birthday, but then they shifted it to the first Monday of the week because, let's face it, who doesn't like long weekends? Anyway, on to the news. Last week it was all about Macworld, and we both went down there, and it was looking decidedly thin on the ground without Apple there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you can imagine, of course, Macworld without Apple is basically an extremely minor show. It goes from being one of the biggest shows of the year to being a show that people really don't care about outside of a very small niche of developers, peripherals companies, that sort of thing. We did find a few interesting things there. We saw the video that we shot from the show floor. But yeah, for the most part, it seemed kind of like a dying event, really.
Yeah, I think I've got a feeling it's on its way out. They were proclaiming that this Macworld was, sort of the next evolution of Macworld, and if that's the case, it's probably the Dodo evolution, I should imagine. An awful lot of consumer stuff on the floor, like iPhone covers and that sort of thing. But in terms of actual hard technology for the enterprise, very little. I mean, HP had a printer. Microsoft was showing off some of the Office for Mac features. There really wasn't an awful lot going on.
No, there really was. I mean, Macworld never really was a huge business show to begin with, just because Apple's enterprise reach is fairly limited to
yes,
some creative professionals, that sort of thing. Not a very large, wide range though of companies to market to when you're a Mac specialist. But yeah, I think even compared to that, even compared to recent years, there just wasn't a lot there for the business either.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it carries on, but with Apple doing press conferences the week before and stealing all the headlines, it looked a bit, a wee bit thin on the ground, let's face it. But the second Apple story of the week, which is one we're just putting on the site after we finish this broadcast, is regarding Apple jailbreaking, or rather iPhone jailbreaking. Now, two of the most prominent jailbreakers, developers who have been working out how to get how to break the safeguards, if you like, on the iPhone so they can use it in different ways. Both of those have been banned from the App Store today, it seems, for security reasons. Now, we've asked Apple for comment, but we haven't received any word as yet. Do you think it's the kind of thing Apple would be likely to do?
Sure. Yeah, they do not like people cracking open their iPhone, tinkering with it, especially if you take it off of the cell phone network that they, had a very, very large, expensive deal to provide the phone for. Obviously, AT&T is going to just come screaming to them the second anybody figures out these kind of baseband hacks, that sort of thing. And I think this is just one more way of kind of ensuring or kind of limiting the access, although I'm not sure how effective it's going to be. Can't you just...
Well, no, you get a new Apple ID and you can get around it.
But yeah, I guess it's kind of a way to...
Not that we'd recommend that, of course, because you should play by Apple's rules. But
I guess it might inconvenience them a little bit, but seeing as how they just figured out a way to hack into the iPhone, remove it from its home cell phone network, remove any sort of copy restrictions Apple has on the mobile device, I'm guessing that getting a new Apple ID isn't going to be outside their realm of abilities.
Well, no, but it struck me writing this story that, it's a very weird situation. It's kind of like buying a PC and then getting grief from the people you bought it from because you installed a new operating system or before
Well, Microsoft did something very similar where they canceled the Xbox Live accounts of users who had modded their Xboxes.
That's true. I think it's a worrying trend, certainly. If you buy something, I can't help feeling it should be yours to do with what you will, even if you want to wear it as a hat or use it as a frisbee. So we'll keep an eye on this one. Now, with regards to hacking, but of a different kind, you had rather a fun story today.
Yeah, a French court has issued an arrest warrant for Floyd Landis. Remember, he was the cyclist who won the 2006 Tour de France and then was stripped of the win after he was found to be using banned substances.
I mean, he came from the Tour de France, it's a brutal contest. I'm sure many of the people there have received some kind of help. I mean, it used to be the case they'd change blood at the end of the night. Just to get more oxygen in there. But the idea that this guy then sat down and hacked the system to try and get...
that's the allegation is that he and his coaches, a few other people, basically masterminded the scheme where you go into the computers of the lab that did the testing, hack the computers, and then take whatever information you can. But this, according to one report, basically they used a Trojan, which is pretty standard data stuff. You know, if you're in the security industry, that's pretty normal attack.
It's the most
get a Trojan, get a Trojan, take the data, upload it somewhere else. In this case, they used it to get information from these systems and claim that the testing was flawed and the company was more or less incompetent.
Okay, right. Well, and finally then, we're going to actually stick with the Apple theme because I just wanted to have a quick word about the top 10s that we do every week. Now, the top 10 this week was top 10 worst Apple products. In the interest of balance, because we do top 10 best Apple products, but they've provoked something of a storm amongst the readers. Certainly the most...
Well, this was something you and I had a bit of an argument over, was we didn't put the Newton on the list. And I wanted, for the record, I wanted to do this. I actually did think the Newton should go on the list, but you have this weird, completely irrational crush on the Newton. I don't know what...
Well, you know, it created the PDA market. It was way ahead of its time. I mean, because in 1991-92, when they first started designing this, the very concept of a handheld computer was something out of Star Trek.
Yeah, but it kind of created the what not to do with the PDA. I mean, it created the PDA market the same way Waterworld created the special effects market for movies. I mean, basically it was, okay, we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do this, this, and this. And that was kind of the Newton's big contribution.
But the handwriting recognition wasn't that bad, okay? It got a bad rap because people were expecting great things from it because it was oversold. And then when it didn't work exactly 100% of the time...
Well, I mean, yeah, this is something I mentioned on the top 10 list. It's like the makers of the Ford Pinto saying, well, yeah, but, you know, the seatbelts are really great. You know, or Toyota saying, well, yeah, okay, but the floor mats are really nice on this thing. I mean, without the handwriting recognition, that's basically the whole point. That's kind of the whole feature you need to do everything. It's like the mouse not working on a computer.
Well, I see. We're obviously going to have to agree to differ on this one, but I honestly think the Newton was a brave attempt. I know you nearly choked on your burger when I suggested it, but, you know, it's... So, yeah, I mean, I think that was a good one. In terms of the worst, I think we got, judging from the reader comments, we got it pretty much spot on.
Yeah, I mean, normally the reader comments, you're going to have a few, you know, how could you have left this out, a few other things. We'd have somebody mention iCal, e-calendar, some of those things.
Yeah.
And I think that's, it's worth noting. I think iWork is still, the jury might still be out on whether or not that's a terrible product, but in general, it doesn't seem to be blowing anybody away or turning too many people off of...
No.
Office, but there might be other reasons for that.
Well, I mean, usually we get spammed out with hate mail from the Apple fanboys for doing something like this, but I figured we were fairly even-handed. Now, we may also be going into more details in another video about how we actually sort out the top 10.
That's a video in and of itself.
Yes, indeed. Which,
all sorts of great stuff for
We'll sort that out in the summer, so stay tuned. And you can read more about these stories and others at v3.co.uk.